Hi, let's talk about necks. I think you know that an important part of an instrument, of a cigar box guitar, is the neck. As mentioned before, it's the place where we have all the frets which allow us to press the strings and come up with a different note. So it's a really critical part of the construction. You have lots of options. There are all kinds of options. You can make them yourself. You can buy them. You can find an old instrument and you can take the neck off of that and you can put it on a cigar box and you can have an instrument. But I'm just going to run through a lot of the different styles and a lot of the different things you'll see out there. At its most simplistic, a neck could be nothing more than a stick with a string on it. And so I have this here that I use as kind of a demo. And it has a metal guitar string on it and just a stick. But as you see, just plucking the string, you can't hear much, okay? These instruments are called chordophones. And the idea with a chordophone is if you have a string and a box, what you're doing is you're transferring the sound down into the box, and then that's making something that you can hear. Because when we listen, and what we hear is basically the vibrations of the air that are going into our ear. All that's vibrating on here is really this little string and a little bit of part of the stick, so you really can't hear much. So you have to kind of amplify it, and if you don't amplify it by using a box, then you can add some electronics and do the same thing. So anyway, this again, this was number one. This is the first one I built, and I decided to go ahead and build the neck myself. So I got a piece of Wenge and I kind of looked at plans on the internet and tried to understand what we were doing. And so I went ahead and built this, and I put a piece of wood on there for the fretboard, put the frets in, and I had my first neck. I built a couple of them that way, and I quickly realized I didn't want to be in the neck building business. So what I did was I found some people who actually make necks, and I decided to buy them from them complete. And so I started buying a lot of necks. And so it just made it real easy. The neck was done, looked really cool, good quality, and I went ahead and used that. So from there, I've gone in a lot of different directions. But the big thing to understand here is that necks have to perform a different function. Over here, I have the total neck tension, and as you can imagine, based upon the length, the size of the string, and the numbers of the strings, can be a lot of tension on the neck. And so you have to take that in consideration. The dimensions and the size and the quality for a ukulele is much different from what you'll need for a bass instrument. So take a look at this real quick, and I point out here that, for example, if you use a concert ukulele, a little concert ukulele, it will only have, when you add up all the tension on all four strings on there, it's going to have about 33 pounds of tension. That's pretty light. Still something to deal with, and you still have to have a neck that's strong enough to handle it. But then as we work our way down, a 3-string guitar, that has about 55. And again, these are just kind of close. Some will be more, some will less. Then if you get down to a 4-string, you're up to 75 pounds. The total tension on all four strings, if you measured them individually and put them together, is about 75. Well, now when you move up to a 6-string guitar, now you're talking about 115 pounds of tension. Imagine that. There's 115 pounds. We'll talk more in an upcoming video when we get into talking about the structural integrity of a box. We'll talk about how strong a box needs to be. So again, like I said, on a ukulele, if you build a ukulele, there's not a lot of tension here. But boy, if you move up to a 6-string guitar, you basically are taking this end, and you're putting some tighteners on here, and you're trying to get it to get tight. And if you're not careful, you'll actually fold the box in half. I know that from experience, so I learned that the hard way. So then we also can go down and move at looking at an 8-string mandolin. The mandolins have 8 strings. That's more than a 6-string. So when we get down to those, we're actually talking about 176 pounds of tension on the mandolin neck. That's a lot. We'll talk about what we do on our necks to help that out. But the granddaddy of them all, the big one, is a 4-string bass. 4-string bass. Those are big, thick strings. It's over a long distance, and those will create about 179 pounds of total tension on that neck. So you have to be really, really careful about doing that right. So Again, something we have to be concerned about. So that dictates a little bit about how we have to build our necks and what we have to be concerned about. Again, the ukulele necks doesn't have to be a whole lot, but when you move up to a bass neck, it has to be a lot. So let's talk about the two basic types of constructions. There's lots of ways of doing it, but basically there are two styles. There's what we call the neck through design, and then there's what we call the bolt-on design. And let's talk about those in detail. Again, you'll see a lot of necks that you can buy. A lot of them you can make. They start off as something very simplistic, as just a piece of one-by material. You can buy it at Home Depot. You can take it home. You can saw it up, glue it together, and you can have your own neck. This is a one-by out of oak. Here's another one that's also out of oak. And you can see basically we have the neck. It's long enough. It's going to go through the body. And we'll talk about the benefits of having that. So again, a neck, it has a back angle. Again, remember from earlier videos we talked about with a nut, we need to make sure that the string falls off the backside. So these are a couple of necks that we have for that. So that's kind of the bolt-on. And to take a look at how that works, I have this as a little demo model that I use to kind of show people how a neck through design might work. So we have the neck. It has what's called a tail piece on it, and long enough it goes through the box. The neat thing about this, and there's some pros and cons whichever way you go, but some of the neat things about this is that all of the gear is kind of connected to the neck itself with the neck through design. That tail piece down here is on the same piece of wood as the nut and the rest of the neck, and that really gives you a solid structure. It's just solid. The box is just actually basically hanging on to it, and doesn't have to be real structural, but we can talk about that later on, where it's good to have it a little bit strong. So again, here's a neck through design, goes down through the neck. The box hangs on the back of it. That's a really cool way of building it. We sell those. We have a lot of those that we sell with a neck through design. The other idea is what I call a bolt-on neck. And the idea there is that it's a neck. It doesn't have that long tail piece on there. It's kind of short, but then what it has is it has a hanger bolt. And here is an example of how you'd put that together. Pretty nice design. The pros for this are real simple. Basically, you take a box and you put a hole in it, and you use a hanger bolt to tighten it up, hold it in place, and then you're pretty much ready to go. These are necks that are pretty much complete and finished when you get them from MGB, and they're real easy to use. One of the things we need to talk about for sure is, again, as we move down this list and we get into this high tension, is the need for a truss rod. And this happens to be a truss rod. We use these and provide these in any of our 6-string necks, any of our mandolins, and certainly any of our bass, because we're starting to get up there into that higher tension. The idea of a truss rod is that it kind of sits in here underneath the fretboard. They put a groove down the center of the neck, and they drop this in there, and then it's totally flexible. And on the end, you actually have what's a truss rod wrench. It's just basically an Allen wrench. And what you're able to do is to put it in there, and you can tighten it. And I think I can show you how it looks. You can kind of see, if you look down that, you'll see that it already has an arch in it. And then what you can do is, by turning this, you can change it and go in a different direction. You can go from it being concave to actually, because these are double acting, to actually being convex. And so you can see I've gone this way, and you can go in this way. And as you're building the instrument, and as you get down close to the final part of the build, when you've got it together and you've got the strings on there and you pull the tension on there, you may need to change the shape of the neck. You may need to straighten it out. It may be too concave this way. You need to lay it flat, or maybe too far this way, and you need to bring it back. So that's the real benefit of a truss rod. Any good guitar, any good 6-string guitar that you see out there that's sold on the market, they all have truss rods. Certainly needed on a bass, you have to have the truss rod. So that's an important part of those instruments. And when we sell, again, on our mandolin and on our 6-string stuff and on our bass, they all have a truss rod on there, and you just need to learn how to adjust it. We'll be talking more about that later as we do the final setup on a guitar and give you an idea. So again, you could just see the options that you have. We sell both. We sell the neck through design, and then we sell the bolt-on design. I can tell you, just from my experience, I started off making my own necks, didn't like that so much, so I started buying finished necks. They were the neck through design, and then as I began to the first products I came out with the bolt-on necks were actually the ukuleles. And I said, this is really cool, this is really helpful. It allows me to do what I need to do. And then the next thing I knew, I moved that into guitars, and then I moved it into bass necks. So I have a complete line of bolt-on necks, and it's just what I like to do. There is no right way, there is no wrong way. I know enough builders and talk to enough builders that they absolutely enjoy going out in the shop and getting the wood and sizing it and sawing it, getting it shaped, putting it together, gluing it together, then hand shaping the neck. Great. A lot of guys love that. They want to do that. There's other guys who don't have, other guys and gals who don't have that skill set, don't have the equipment, and they want to build something. And so that's the real beauty of a bolt-on neck, is that you can basically just take a box and you can drill a hole. You have to reinforce it, and we'll talk about that in a later video. And then you've got the neck ready to go. Finished neck, ready to go. So those are the things we talk about. And there's lots of other ways and other things you can do to build a neck. This is one on a special project I'm currently working on. I went to Lowe's and I was looking around. The handle section, and I found this. This happens to be a handle for a sledgehammer. It's made of hickory. It looks cool. It's about the right size. Just works out really well. So someday I may try and turn that into an instrument. So also, one thing to keep in mind is one of the early decisions is whether to go fretted or go fretless. Most instruments, most of the necks I sell, most of the guitars you see are fretted. That means they have these frets on there. But there's an entire community and a bunch of guys out there who like to go fretless. They don't have a fret. They don't need to know where the notes are because they're talented, they're skilled, and they can just move up and down the fretboard as they like, or also called a fingerboard, and they can get the notes that they want. So we sell also fretless, we sell the fretted. So stuff for you to keep in mind is, you know, the ease of installation. When you use these bolt-on necks, you really need to reinforce the box. This is a cutaway of using one of these beefy bass necks on a cigar box. I cut it away. You can see I put reinforcement at the top of the box. I also have the you can see the hanger bolt. You can see a reinforcement plate. That's how we reinforce it. As far as the hanger bolts, we have several sizes that we use on our different instruments. We have one size that we use on the ukulele necks, and we have another size that we use on our guitar necks, and then one size we use on the bass necks. And you probably are familiar with a hanger bolt. It's a really handy little fastener that's used in a lot of different applications. Basically has, on this end, it's a threaded machine thread for like a 1/4 and then on this end, it's like a screw. And basically we just put those into the necks, put them down there solid, and they really hold, and they'll take the tension. We've sold lots and lots of these necks and have had very few problems. They're strong enough, solid enough. If you make the box stiff enough, they'll hold it and they'll do a great job. So again, lots of options, lots of things you can do. Build your own, buy your own, neck through design, bolt-on neck. Get an old guitar at a local pawn shop, go in. If it's a real piece of junk, just rip the neck off of it and put it on a box. Lots of options, but it's an important part of building a CBG. I'll see you in the next video.